Hi, my name is Dr. Tracy Severance, and I am joined by the co-host of DisruptED TV, Joe Asamundi.
I'm still Joe Asamundi.
Good, that's good. We count on that.
Thank you, I appreciate
Very
it.
good. And we have a special guest here today, or perhaps I should say two special guests. So today we're going to talk about Milo, and there's no one better to talk with us about the story of Milo than Dr. Greg Fern. So thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
And we're excited to learn more about Milo. So can you please tell us a little bit about his story? Where did he come from? Where did he get his name?
Great question. So often asked about Milo and where the name came from. And I think before I answer that, I'm going to answer or share a little bit more.
Okay.
All right. So Milo is the brainchild of Richard Margolin. Richard is a very, very smart engineer, graduated from the University of Texas, Arlington. He, and along with his father, co-founder, started RoboKind in 2011. And we were approached by Dr. Pam Rollins at the University of Texas, Dallas. It's the Collier Center for Communicative Disorders, and asked whether or not if we could create a facially expressive social humanoid robot, of which Richard is probably the world's leading facially expressive robotics engineer ever. I mean, he is just short of amazing, and you'll see some of the features of why Milo is so unique. But Dr. Rollins asked us if we could create one, because she had a hypothesis that believed that individuals with autism would engage at a higher rate with a facially expressive humanoid social robot than they would with a human. And lo and behold, her research, much to the chagrin of well-intended therapists, and because we share some background together in serving in public education, it's kind of disheartening. But she found with fluent autistics that they would engage with Milo at 87% compared to 3 to 5% with a human therapist. So that's what started, if you will, a good 3.5 years of clinical development of a social, emotional, behavioral, and communicative skill development curriculum along with Milo. So everything about Milo has been clinically tested, from his size to his hair. You'll get to see some facial expressions in a moment. His voice, his hands, the whole configuration is clinically tested. We've been researched by universities across the United States as well as in the UK. Our most longitudinal study to date was done at the CRAE, which is the Center for Research in London, working with autistic children and individuals. And then we have a study that is pending release from Johns Hopkins, which will also be a longitudinal study. But research, both qualitative and quantitative, abounds around Milo. Again, because it's focused on social, emotional, behavioral, and communicative skill development, we have a very, very specific mission. So the company in Dallas, we're a Dallas-based company. Richard and Fred, his father, are both the co-founders. We have been privately funded, most of it from Fred Margolin, Richard's father, and we are on a mission. And our mission is very, very simple. We want to change the world for autism. And what we've been able to do is we currently are in 27 states, 3 provinces in Canada, and every English-speaking country in the world, and have delivered tens of thousands of lessons. We're working with thousands of ASD learners, and we work with individuals into adulthood. So Dr. Garber, who's also one of the curriculum writers, she is at the Autism Center in Dallas as a practitioner. She works with 50-year-olds with Milo.
Wow.
So there's no age, there's no specific niche on the spectrum. I would be extremely disingenuous if I didn't say that Milo works with about 70% of those on the spectrum. Dr. Rollins is fond of saying that if you've seen one autistic child, you've seen one autistic child or an individual with autism. And that we subscribe to the fact that if we're going to change the world, we needed to have a product, a tool, if you will, that could deliver that curriculum. And it's been amazing. I'm humbled every week by phone calls that I hear from parents, I hear from educators that talk about the life-changing impact. And probably you would like to hear Milo. Milo loves talking about what he's accomplished. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Sure.
All right, so Milo's going to warm up a little bit. He's been quiet for too long. And he sometimes does not always wait for me to cue him. But it's pretty amazing to see what he's able to do.
Well, he's getting started.
Hi. My name is Milo. I'd like to tell you about the great progress I'm making with my friends. Spending time working with friends, I see so many improvements. We use calm down tools and see a decrease in disruptions and meltdowns, which resulted in my friends being able to concentrate better. As we show each other what we look like when we are excited, scared, or happy, my friends are able to increase their understanding of emotions and what they mean. Now my friends are more confident, willing to look at others face to face, and are more interested in becoming engaged with other people. My friends are able to better communicate their needs and feelings after expanding their vocabulary through use of key terms, along with icons on my chess screen and on the tablet. All these improvements my friends made lead to better functioning school days and increases in academic progress. I'm told that when my friends go home, their parents recognize improvements in behavior and interactions. I feel great knowing my friends and their families are interacting more. I see and hear about all these improvements happening after I've spent just 1 to 4 months with my friends. I believe my friends have made some very impressive improvements, don't you? Please help introduce me to more friends and help improve the lives of many more of our students.
From the very beginning, I knew there was something different about her. She is a bright and fun and creative little girl. Celia has autism. We jokingly say that she is a ray of sunshine with the occasional thundercloud.
Celia would get really angry at herself because she couldn't calm herself down and she was a bad kid. It's not a meltdown because the child's being bad, it's because that brain cannot figure out what to do with all this information and it's in complete overload.
We're kicked out of daycares, we were kicked out of preschools. Those early days, I would not wish it on anyone. Milo was the life changer for us.
You can tell me what to do.
With Milo, Celia would watch, listen for his question, think about it, and respond. Celia never did that in a normal conversation before. It's always technology for Celia, and for most kids with autism it is. Milo is a technological person. He makes this connection with them.
Celia flew. She increased 3 grades within a 9-month period.
After a lifetime of hearing that your kid can't do what every other kid is doing, to be able to go in and hear improvement is life-changing. It's hope. It's very rare in the autism community for any of us to feel hope.
So you heard Milo talk about friends. Did you get kind of tired of hearing friends?
A lot of talk about friends.
A lot of friends. And you saw also every time a friend was mentioned auditorily, you saw a picture of a stick figure, very simple, a friend. So for neurotypical, we kind of go, okay, I get it. You work with friends. But for an autistic, the repetition, trying to associate friend and get that audio and that visual connection is extremely important. Repetition is critical to the development of social emotional understanding, let alone self-regulation and communication. Interestingly enough, when we started out, one of the first modules and lessons that we worked on, in addition to Calm Down, were birthday parties.
Wow.
If you talk with a parent of an autistic child and ask them how many birthday parties has their child attended, the answer is generally one.
Yeah.
So we actually teach, and Milo is an amazing tool for teaching about how you behave in a social setting like a birthday party. I mean, can you imagine going and shopping for a gift? You've picked it out. It's a gift that you really, really like. And now I've got to give it away? How do I do that? So Milo, very systematically, because he's really designed to the strength of an autistic learner, so he systematizes. We would come to the home, we'll greet the host. The host may ask us to leave the present. It's okay to leave the present. So we go through a number of those settings, which are really, really important, because the goal is to generalize to human interaction and behavior. And that's really the power. A very robust, comprehensive curriculum, again, in those 4 areas. We don't purport to be do improvement of academics, but when a student is engaged, and this is germane to both neuro as well as neurologically or cognitively disordered individuals, engagement is learning. If they're engaged, they'll learn. Milo's speech is approximately 20% slower than how we speak. He doesn't emit any emotion. He's always even. And he's very fond of telling you that he can repeat himself 10, 20, 30 times in the same way. He never gets tired. And what I like about it, he never gets mad. He never gets frustrated. And those are critical because those are distractors. Those are huge distractors for the autistic population. As I mentioned, Milo works across the spectrum. He will work with nonverbal, very low functioning, and he will also work with very high functioning. What we used to classify as Asperger's, or very high performing and high functioning autistics. Still, probably you may have had the same experience. Socially, there were some oddities. They just were little quirks that just didn't fit in. And I'm ashamed, almost embarrassed to say that I think when I was a high school principal that some of the children that probably were the subject of inappropriate behavior, and I won't call it bullying, but maybe some elements of bullying and harassment, were probably our Asperger's kids because they were just socially a little quirky. Milo helps with those social narratives, and that's part of critical. I need to see myself in a social setting. Dr. Rollins does an amazing job of talking about structured coherence, how we help make sense and create understanding, which is why social understanding, emotional understanding are 2 of our really, really important modules that we do.
Huge,
So he exaggerates some facial expressions, which I would love to show you. I think we have time for that. And I'm going to talk over this just a moment as I'm doing that, because I think it's important to note. We each gained our social and most of our emotional understanding probably from our parents. And as he's going to go through a couple of these with you. But as we did that, I think of my mother probably as I've watched my own children, my wife, the mother of our children did the same thing. How to smile, what does sad look like, frightened. But if I don't have that ability because of my wiring to really understand that, that's where Milo comes in. And the reason why we over-exaggerate the facial expressions is because we try to systematize what each part of the face is doing with any given emotion. So an autistic may only look at the mouth, which completely misses our eyes,
and brows,
which we know is all of that. So then we'll teach to the eyes and we'll teach to the eyebrow, and we'll systematize it so that when I look at a face, I can look at the mouth, the eyes, and the eyebrow. And that makes sense, and it helps create coherence.
And it's telling them where the information lies.
Exactly.
So it doesn't, there are a lot of things that you could look at. And so while it's almost simplified and, as you said, exaggerated so that I can really learn the cues that I need without the distractors, right?
Exactly. And I spent almost 35 years in education. I am not a special educator, and I am not a specialist in the area of autism. Many, many more people know more than I'll ever know, and I am humbled by that. But what I've learned about autism, I've learned through Milo and the Robots for Autism program because of the pedagogical design, the instructional methodologies that all make sense, the progression of moving from Milo teaching parts of the face to looking at stills of humans to watching humans interact.
Yeah.
All of that lends itself to the strength of an autistic learner. As I said, as an educator, what RoboKind represented to me and what Milo did is really in the area of we just can't find enough paraprofessionals and teacher assistants to be working with children with autism. The numbers are staggering. The prevalence rates are not decreasing, they're increasing. In fact, we're learning more every day about autism. And as much as we need to focus on how to find a prevention or a cure, we also need to deal with the children we have at hand.
Of course, yeah.
So you and I in our roles had autistic children in our school districts. We know what the cost of providing training. But my heart really started to go out to the aged out or after 21, 22 years of age and being in our system. What do we do with children that may not be employable?
Sure.
Or they're underemployed.
Yeah.
What about public assistance? What about probably the number one question that a parent with an autistic deals with is what's going to happen when I'm no longer here?
Of course,
Those are real questions. And so Fred and Richard and our team at RoboKind started this mission about changing the world for autism, but we wanted to do it in such a way that was not going to quote unquote break the bank.
Okay.
We wanted to do this, especially as a superintendent, wanted to be very cost sensitive and price sensitive, and how do we get that out there? The other part, along with that, is understanding that Milo does not replace or take the place of an educator or a para.
So important.
He transforms the way therapy is delivered. Dr. Margot, one of our subject matter experts, she is an occupational therapist. And Shelley talks all the time about Milo enhancing, accelerating, amplifying the work that therapists do, including educators. And then one of my challenges was that even as best as my educators were educated, they were still generalists. Even my special education teachers were still generalists in the area of special education. Working in the world of autism takes more than just being a generalist.
Yes.
You need to really understand the neurological challenges as well as what's the antecedents for that behavior. What is it about the neurological and cognitive disconnects that causes an individual with autism to what we would consider neurotypical as misbehaving or inappropriate behavior, when to them it's behavior. I'm frustrated, I don't know how to behave or act, I've got too much going on here, and I melt down and calm down. Which is why we've developed in our program a way to begin to self-regulate, which is probably when we talk about 1 to 4 months of impact, that's where Milo has the greatest impact initially, is with self-regulation. But we wanted to also create, with this idea that we don't have an abundance of educators that are trained specifically in the area of autism or paraprofessionals, is how do we create a curriculum that educator acts as a facilitator and not the deliverer of instruction. And that was part of the curriculum design, is that Milo is part of a delivery system of a robust curriculum that for that para who may only know a scratch of what autism is, we provide that backdrop, that background. We provide all of that information for them so they understand why this lesson works with this type of a specific goal, if you will, in the area of autism. So let me pause. I know you've got a ton of questions.
Yeah, how could you tell? I'm like sitting here biting at the chomper, as someone in one of my college classes once said. So here's one. Is this really, is Milo just for students with autism?
That is a great question, and one of which I'm asked often. Our research and the curriculum was really designed to work with autism. However, and I want to put a very cautious however behind this, because I do not have the research, it's all anecdotal and the stories that we're told. We know that, for example, Down syndrome, one of the most misdiagnoses for Down syndrome is spectrum disorder. We know that Milo, in working with individuals, I work with several MDs who tell me that the curriculum, especially with the calm down, facial recognition, emotional understanding, all of those are perfect for Down syndrome. So we do work in that area. We also, the calm down methodology works extremely well with ADD and ADHD, which we know, again, neurotypical, but However, learning those very salient skills is something that's there. We're also working with, believe it or not, incarcerated adolescents.
Wow.
And that are neurotypical, but we're working with them also in the area of self-regulation, identifying emotion. How do I calm down? How do I recognize that I'm starting to get frustrated? So we do data collection with all of our clients, all of the schools and school districts and the therapy clinics and hospitals we work with to see if there are other disabilities that are associated with the individual, because as you know better than I, is that autism is rarely just autism,
Yes.
it's autism and there's usually another mitigating disability.
Sure.
So the answer to that question, and I'm sorry I was a little bit long-toothed, is that yes, we do work with other disabilities. I'm just cautious not to use the same type of research base because it is different.
Sure, that makes sense to me because it's not about the diagnosis per se, but the presenting challenges. And so what I'm learning about him is what he very patiently, very effectively addresses. So wherever those deficits may lie, where he can support or assist in that area, it doesn't matter what your diagnosis is, for example, it's whether he's able to assist you. Exactly. And I think key to that is the curriculum, and you've mentioned that a couple times, and I'm really interested to know a little more about what strands, if you will, what is the scope of what's included in that curriculum?
Yeah, great question. As I mentioned earlier, we're focused in 4 areas, social, emotional, behavioral, and communicative skill development.
Okay.
And in doing so, those modules, Calm Down is a separate module with a number of lessons that try to identify, or they teach, but identify which Calm Down tool is best for you.
Okay.
And we try to individualize that. So we'll have several lessons that sit inside Calm Down.
Okay.
Because again, every autistic is an individual,
Sure.
and will have a different methodology or strategy that will work best for them. Emotional understanding. Emotional understanding is critical. That's where we really use Milo's facial expressiveness along with the visual supports, both an icon and also the social narratives that really bring to life those. So emotional understanding. Social situations. So I mentioned the birthday party
Yes, that
earlier,
was so
but the
cool.
transitions. If I'm a bus rider, how do I go from riding the bus into the classroom? What about from the classroom to a special, albeit library or physical education or computer or whatever it might be, a special? How do I do that? What about just class to class? When we look at middle school and high school and transitions, what does that look like? The most oft asked curriculum for us, however, which is not developed, it's in process right now, has to do with dating.
Really?
I did find myself drawn to him.
He does have that magnetic personality. So, I'm sorry, but we actually have some lessons to help with that. So the situational and social settings are absolutely critical as well. And in communication or conversational dynamics. So unfortunately, I'm modeling, which I probably shouldn't do, but with taking turns in a
Yes.
two-way conversation.
Yeah.
When it's okay for me to talk, when do you talk? How about when we say hello?
Yeah.
Do we always, when someone says, hello, how are you? Do we always answer the question, how are we? Or do we just move on? Well,
Right.
for an individual with autism who is very literal, wait a minute, it's my turn. You asked me how I am, I'm going to tell you. It could be completely disorient and obstruct, if you will, that engagement. So we actually teach how to do that in a very systematic way.
So, and I love that. I heard you mention that this new aspect that you're developing is on dating. So I would imagine, and you spoke about the birthday parties, which I love because these are the places where families ache for their children, and where we experience these hardships, and they just don't know how to navigate those social waters. So have you had parents or through some other means created those social scenarios? So I'm thinking everything from various kinds of holidays to just the different interactions that we experience in the day. Are there other situational examples that you can share?
So the answer is yes, and I will. But backing up a little bit, so all of our curriculum is developed by either practitioners, academics, clinicians, the individuals that own their own clinics, and or special educators. So every one of our lessons, which to kind of back 2 steps up.
Okay.
Every one of our lessons come with sample IEP goals. So we don't presume to know specifically what the needs are of every student, but what we do is with all of our lessons, which are over 140, each of our lessons comes with sample IEP goals, which then match up the data analytics and the collecting and reporting protocols. The suggestions that we get for content and curriculum come from parents, they come from educators. We have a team of writers that are all practitioners, as I mentioned before. We really felt it was important as a company is to have special educators that work in the world of autism, influencing and framing and writing all of our situations. So we use over 1,500 video vignettes that are filmed. Some of those are within 10 to 15 seconds. They're very quick because our goal is to move to generalizing to human interaction. So I mentioned Dr. Rollins. Dr. Rollins was instrumental in getting us started with the curriculum. Michelle McFarland, who is a clinician, she owns her own private therapy. She works with very young up until elementary age. So she's there, she influences, and we have to have sign off by our content experts before we release any new material.
Wow. I mean, I'm thinking even of how you manage a disagreement, because the children all have siblings, they have classmates, and which activity are we going to do at recess, or what, you know, who's going to get to play with the toy or the game first, or which video game are we going to play? And so managing all of those nuanced ways that we negotiate the world are so important.
Exactly. So to your point, so play dates. When is it my turn? When is it your turn? Is extremely important, which is built into what we do. You asked, so on the drawing board, what's coming?
Yes.
So in addition to the 5 modules and the 140 lessons that we're doing and what I mentioned earlier, we're also very, very interested in transitions at 18 to 22 and 22 and beyond. So pre-employment, so life skills, and moving those into the realm of Robots for Autism, because those are extremely important. And because the curriculum is designed to both teach and practice, you can always practice a skill. So we have a weather delay, or we have a summer recess, or we have a holiday. Any of those disruptions can wreak havoc on both the home and also autistic children. So we want to teach how you deal with that. How do you work through that? How do you, first of all, recognize when you're getting frustrated, and then how do I behave appropriately? Which is all part of the content in the curriculum. So these life skills are extremely important. So we have those on our drawing board for release, hopefully for the 2018 school year, because, as I mentioned, the complexity is we've got Milo, we've got video or visual supports here, we've got video modeling, we have all of this that has to go into creating a lesson. So that practice mode that gets to go over and over again, which is incredible because I can do it 20 to 30 times.
Perfectly, every time.
Milo he is not embarrassed in telling you how good he is all because of how the curriculum is designed. And so it does take time for us to do that, but we love suggestions. We have a way to do that on our website. People can tell us all the time, have you thought about this, or are you thinking about that? And the answer is yes.
Wow. I'm thinking about even when I was the principal of a middle school, fire drills, lockdown drills. I mean, it's a sad reality today that can be so frightening, you know, or sometimes when there was a change in schedule and now we have an assembly and we're not supposed to be in assembly, you know, we're supposed to do this now. So when we stray from the routine, how to calm, center, and then continue your day. I mean, these are just really important coping skills.
Absolutely, and so one of the areas, and reason why this is so timely, it's because we know from a cost avoidance perspective and benefit is that if I don't have to have that full-time paraprofessional working that is assigned just to little Greg, that para can actually be working with other students, what happens in a situation where there is a transition, a fire drill, or some disruption to schedule? Do I have that self-regulation? Do I have the ability to recognize and then act appropriately? And act accordingly, I should say. So the answer is yes. Those are extremely important and timely.
Yeah, and you've talked about how the curriculum is changing. I'm also interested in if you're making any changes to Milo himself. Is he getting? Are there any changes in the robot other than its features?
So Milo, 2 parts to that. Milo has a twin brother from a different mother.
Okay.
He has a dark skin brother, and he also has a sister. So we know that autistics don't necessarily differentiate between gender and ethnicity, but we think it's very important to have that, to remove, if you will, just one more barrier. All named Milo.
The girl isn't even Mila.
Mila. But Milo comes from, interestingly enough, when we first birthed the robot in the program, we actually had students come up with the name. There was a contest, and that's where Milo came from. Is a student said, "Well, we think Milo," and it's unique, and it resonates and it makes sense. And so everything in Robots for Autism is Milo. But to answer your question on the second part, yes, there is a new version that will be coming out. We've decided that it was important to change the orientation of his faceplate. So we actually changed that to from vertical to horizontal, and we made it a little bit bigger so that those visual supports and icons can be seen. He does have video and audio recording and playback, and so we thought it was important that he does that. And a little secret, he actually sees from right here. So it's interesting because he's almost got a 180 viewing capacity. So when we first developed Milo, it was interesting, his camera was in his eye, and that was a little bit too scary.
Yeah.
Because he's cartoonish enough, but yet humanoid in the facial expressiveness that he becomes a friend. And what I'm doing right now is what most children and adults like to do. They want to hold his hand. And Milo likes that. And Milo is so durable that we can move him. And if it was a gesture and I was holding his hand and Milo wanted to go through a sequence, you'll hear a clicking. It's a slip clutch, which makes sure that we're not damaging him. So he knows when there's pressure exerted and he doesn't break.
Wow.
It's very interesting. So he walks, he talks, he smiles, he does everything but shed a tear. He won't cry for us.
Okay.
How does Milo differ from other robots on the market?
Great question. So two things I think are very critical. Number one is the facial expressiveness, the fact that he can teach parts of the face, and therefore emotional understanding is probably the greatest differentiator. The second is that he comes with a comprehensive curriculum.
Okay.
And our curriculum is very focused on those foundational skills of social, emotional, behavioral, and communicative skills that we believe builds that foundation for further and deeper therapy, as well as those life equipping skills that individuals need.
So what do you most want people to know about Milo?
Milo is able to do what you and I desire to do with working with children with autism, but can do that quicker and in an engaging manner that empowers the learner. Because he's safe, he has no agenda, he is not going to judge in any way. And again, you and I on our best days are going to emit some type of emotion when we're talking and working with individuals. Milo doesn't do that. I think that's number one. Number two is that we believe that Milo, working with up to 70% of children with autism, will change the trajectory of children. Wow. We've already seen it. We have amazing stories of children that were in self-contained classrooms working with Milo for 27 weeks. They've returned in part of their day to the regular ed or general education classroom. We've seen children that had a full-time custodial aide no longer need that supervision because they've begun to self-regulate, and that's critical. I mean, self-regulation, we know with neurotypical is a challenge, let alone with someone who's neurologically and cognitively different. And the third thing I would really want to emphasize is that Milo does not take the place of ... I'm often asked, especially when I work with legislators, well, this is a great way for us to cut costs and staffing. And I go, no, absolutely not. Milo always will operate with a facilitator. That facilitator, however, doesn't have to be that licensed teacher. It can be a paraprofessional or a teacher assistant. And in one case, in the state of Georgia, they're using neurotypical high school students to work with high-functioning autistics at the elementary level. So that cross-age is powerful because it's doing two things. Not only it's facilitating the program, but it's creating in the neurotypical a level of empathy, understanding, appreciation for different, which is absolutely critical.
I love that. So everybody's learning.
Exactly, because every year we replenish this, but currently we have 1.3 million children in American public schools with autism. Wow. And the reason why, and the number is probably a little bit higher, but 97 to 98% of children with autism are being served in our public schools. We know what the costs are. I mean, we spent last year as a nation $29 billion just in the K-12 space.
Billion with a B.
Billion with a B,
yeah.
with autism. We know, and Milo has demonstrated incredible cost avoidance over and over again because he works with a number of children. I know that one of the questions we kind of talked about off camera was, well, how many children does Milo work with?
Yeah.
Well, Milo can work with as many children that can be scheduled. So it's not necessarily one-to-one Greg, Milo all the time. We only want Milo working with children up to 90 minutes a week, 3 30-minute sessions. And so he can work with anywhere between 12 to 20 to 100. It's all about scheduling. So that's where you start to see that economic benefit, that cost avoidance come in, because he can work with multiple children and they can be working at different places. They don't have to be working on the same lesson. I have 140 different lessons that a child could be practicing. So that's one of the beautiful things. So a lot of versatility. Every implementation in the 27 states that we're in is slightly different. We have Milo that's literally as part of the instructional cadence of the day. We have Milo that's being worked as a pullout. We have Milo that's working in small group because we have small group lessons as well as large group lessons. All of those are part of what make Milo and Robots for Autism not only effective, but very, very efficient in working with children with social, emotional, behavioral, and communicative skill development needs.
So this has been really a fascinating conversation about how Milo can help children with autism in profound ways, not just academically, not just in school, but in their lives. And I think there's so much to celebrate in terms of what this makes possible for kids. So, so I want to thank you for that, and just give you an opportunity to share. If there is there any other aspects of what Milo can offer or do that you think are important for people to know?
I think there's two. Number one is, I'll just share with you very quickly, the biggest complaint we get from parents is their child just wants to be with Milo.
Oh.
And we know why. Now, that's nice to hear, but it's what Milo is accomplishing. The second is that we introduce Milo differently in every setting. And so I thought it might be appropriate, because I know that we've been sitting for a few minutes, to see one example of how we might introduce Milo into a classroom.
I'm going to play music.
Whoa.
I'm going to move. My body, I'm going to talk. This is okay. I'm going to turn on the song. Everybody stand up.
Okay. I mean, we've got to stand up.
Stand up. Gotta say,
I hope you will dance with me.
okay.
Let's have a dance party.
Oh.
Let's dance.
Now, I'll remind you, we're recording right now. So what you're doing is going to be captured. You got to move. Milo's got great moves and generally
Come on, Joe.
Got to move it. I mean, hey, this is Disrupt TV at its best. We're disrupting. All right, so pretty good?
Yeah, there you go.
Let's keep it G-rated.
There you go. So I thought I would do that. Milo, we do dance parties, and students love to interact with Milo initially. And I should say, as we're standing, is that a lot of the clips that you might see on Vimeo or YouTube and so forth always see Milo doing something like a dance or something with students. That's just how we introduce him. It's really the curriculum. Once we get past that initial engagement, that's what unlocks the social, emotional, behavioral skill development. So I wanted us to do that real quickly so you could see he's quite capable of doing a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, so we've learned that Milo makes for a great dance party and a great dance partner. And in terms of just the work that you're doing, your company's doing to bring this to students, because students need an opportunity to interact in order for all of this potential to make a difference in their lives. And so if you could just kind of help bring us to a close by talking about that idea of the mission, that this is really more than about sales. This is really about making a difference in the lives of kids.
Thank you. The three words that I would love for folks to just really resonate with them is that we change lives. And as you and I both experienced as superintendents, we dealt with a lot of companies, we dealt with a lot of products, we dealt with a lot of individuals trying to sell those things to us. One of the things that was very important to me is when I came to RoboKind is I said, I really want us to lead with our social mission. We want to change lives. We're a for-profit company. Yes, we have to sell things to stay in business and create better Milos and better product all the time. But it's our social mission, the fact that everyone in our company, and we have a number of autistics that work at our company, which is amazing. We have parents of autistics that work in our company. We are very, very committed to the proposition that we can and will change lives, and we're just so humbled and honored to be a part of that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I just feel like I have to shake your hand. Thank you so much.
Well, shake Milo's hand.
And his hand. He's like so adorable. So, Joe, thank you for joining us again on this exciting episode of DisruptED TV. I want to thank all of our viewers for being here with us, and let's give you an opportunity to, I would pass it on to Milo, but let's let you speak for him. How can people get in touch with you if they'd like to do that?
You bet. To learn more about Milo, you can go to robots4autism.com. The number 4 is the number 4, or you can talk with our friends here at TechXtend.
Great. And that's where our studio is coming from, TechXtend Studios.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Very good. Thank you so much. Dr. Fern, Robots4Autism selected TechXtend as their resell partner. Can you tell us a little bit about why?
3 words: integrity, impact, and transformation. That TechXtend has a reputation not only in the state of New Jersey, but across the United States and the world for providing excellent services and providing excellent breakthrough technology. And that's exactly what we do in the world of autism. So we're very excited about this partnering opportunity, and we're really excited about creating transformational impact for children with autism.
Hi, my name is Milo.
Brand new technology.
It's nice to see you again.
The therapy is done through Milo, essentially.
Sometimes my friends might say hi.
This little boy is coming out of his shell and just loves it.
He's a small, human-like droid named Milo, and he has kids like 7-year-old Bailey Arnett enthralled.
He makes therapy lots of fun, doesn't he?
Yeah. He didn't have a lot of communication skills and avoided eye contact and found it very difficult to interact with others. He was very much a loner.
Bailey's mum, Emma, says her little boy's always struggled socially, diagnosed with autism at age 3. But 10 weeks of therapy with Milo and Bailey's confidence has soared, especially at school.
He would look at the ground and might kind of go, hi, whereas now he is open and will shout from the rooftops their names some days and run through the corridor and, hi, Miss Lily.
Milo has a whole lot of motors in his face so that he's able to simulate a lot of different emotions and facial expressions.
Carolyn Yench from Rocky Bay says children with autism can find social interactions confusing, but by projecting videos onto iPads and demonstrating human reactions with his own face, Milo's teaching is both non-threatening and interesting for kids.
It's something new, it's something different, it's something that hasn't been seen before.
And the tablet?
Here, Milo's showing Bailey appropriate ways to leave a conversation or move away from someone.
Smile and say bye to them, just like when you said bye to me.
Do you remember the different ways we could say it? He really liked Milo, and it helped him, I guess, to pay attention rather than me talking at him for 45 minutes.
Regular human therapists like Lauren Constantine guide the teaching, but Milo has smart technology built in. He records and assesses kids and increases the complexity as they progress.
Yeah, at the beginning he was definitely a very shy little boy, very short responses, me asking lots of questions and getting quite short answers, and then by the end we would have a two-way conversation where he would make lots of comments.
The first of his kind in WA, Milo was designed in the US. He's been programmed by a Harvard-trained speech pathologist. Milo's speech is slowed to 82%, with research showing that makes him easier to understand. And unlike a human voice, Milo's never changes in volume, tone or inflection.
A lot of kids who are diagnosed or on the autism spectrum, they cope really well when things are predictable.
What sort of things did you learn with him?
Happy, sad and angry.
Yeah?
Bailey's mum says he would never previously engage like this with someone he's just met, let alone on camera.
And what's that one?
Surprise.
Surprise! That's brilliant.
But the one breakthrough that really reinforced for Emma just how far her little boy's come, after 5 years of regularly seeing a family friend, one day Bailey shook his hand.
And jumped in front of him and stuck his hand out and said, "Hi, how's it going?" And he's never done that ever. And we all just melted and we're all looking at each other going, oh my God, can't believe that just happened. And that was just wow, a wow moment that we knew that Milo was working.
So far, Milo's worked with just 10 Perth kids, but there are plans to buy more humanoids to meet demand.
What we've achieved with Milo is just a small scale, but it's changed our lives. So look forward to seeing lots of other children have access to him.
Thank you for listening. I hope you will help us change the world.